Welcome to the destruction of Black civilization, great issues of a race from 4500 BC to 2000 AD. Chapter 4, the first cataract, the Black world's new borderline. We're going to be doing segments, the new borderline of the Blacks, scraps from prehistory, and the children of the sun. And I also believe those are the three. But yeah, Miss Nebula, we can hear music coming from your mic. So yeah, usually what we do is just do a quick snippet of what you learned, what you want to share. I'll go ahead and start. Really beautiful segments. Even though it's so short, it's just full of so much information. And what I learned here is that once again, Black people have been fighting for thousands of years, and it seems like from enemies from all over the world. It seems like so. It seems like everyone has at least attempted to or has successfully destroyed some part of Black civilization or attacked some part of Black civilization, from the Syrians to the Persians to the Greeks. And as I'm reading this book, I'm understanding this attack on Blackness, on Black people. It's not new. This is historically programmed. This is the program of the world, apparently. Attack Black, dominate Black, and keep Black suppressed, because there's a great civilization waiting to be born, and that will definitely wipe out all the incorrect behavior that's dominating the planet at the moment. And I'll hold for the discussion.
I could share. Yeah, I thought it was very interesting and again tragic to learn and see how just various Black civilizations were destroyed and dominated, and it just seems that the Blacks just kept getting pushed out of their lands, getting pushed further and further south. But I really and how Blacks failed to use their resources constructively in order to prevent their destruction and their subjugation is really interesting to see that in hindsight. And also I really appreciated the Children of the Sun portion, which teaches us that being Black was once a badge of honor. You know, people were prideful and wore their Black skin with deep Black self-respect. And it's really tragic to see how in 2021, that is not the case anymore for a large majority of melanated people, especially Black people.
Definitely not the case anymore. Skin bleaching creams are in high demand, especially over here in England. Everyone's skin bleaching. I know people who are skin bleaching. So yeah, that Black skin is now a curse to the conscious minds of almost every human being. That's why there's so much self-hate and such a deep lack of self-respect amongst Black males and Black females, and unfortunately Black children. Whoever wants to go ahead and please.
Yeah, I definitely think it was a thing of high pride, like just chiming into the Children of the Sun section. Just to summarize for me, I really enjoyed this chapter, these four chapters that we these four little sub chapters that we read, because it was very informative. It had lots of information in a short amount of time, so my notes are not even like as full as I'd like them to be, but the images that I do see in my mind is they're staying with me. Like, especially what sticks out for me the most is words like resistance, 4,000 years of fighting off and persisting against different people coming at them from different angles and trying to reconstruct and revive the culture at the times of these it just is very hard, and it shows where we are at now. Like, we're almost defeated in the sense of reviving our culture. There's a statement that they say in there's a question that they ask that I'd really like us to like explore, where they say, are we so, like, how have we got to the stage where even the memory of our greatness and of culture is not enough for us to try and revive the culture? Like, I think it has a lot to do with our programming, but yeah, I'll just end my summary there.
Ben, Ezekiel, either you want
to? Yes. So from this chapter, I'm really seeing the determination of Africans, and really our ability and our disdain for the concept of amalgamation, and really how some people were against that. I continuously see that we have been fighting forever and continue fighting. In this chapter in particular, it kind of highlights the last time that Africans were able to rule Egypt. I don't know if they necessarily gave up on it. I don't know if I would say that, but I guess their focus changed. And I did enjoy the Children of the Sun. That was some very reinforcing sentiments there. That once upon a time, we definitely loved our skin, loved ourselves, and it's not just a fad and a trend as it is now today. And really, one other thing I noticed was kind of the practices that white people have been using for centuries. Some things you may that I may have considered to be new, or like, oh, how can somebody do this? But it makes sense because they've been practicing it for centuries, and they've codified it because they know it works. Just like how they went into how, once again, I was watching a debate, and how these South Africans are talking about how they came upon South Africa, talking about these lands were unoccupied, and that I guess it's free for them to take. Yeah, that's it for me.
Well, yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I agree totally that big changes are coming, and that man, this is a lot. Just knowing how, just reviewing just how vast Ethiopia was, and how like their boundaries were pretty much unlimited to the south, and that it was laughable that they would try to distinguish areas that were not Ethiopian. They didn't acknowledge the land that the whites had taken, and that's why they kept coming back and reestablishing their power there. And I thought that was beautiful, and I also thought that just reemphasizing that, like what Ezekiel mentioned, that there was a time when the blacker you were, the more proud you were. That makes sense. The closer to the sun you are, the more electromagnetic energy you're able to conduct. And it just made it real obvious why they had to go polar opposite. And it just really overemphasizes how they were actually moving in the opposite direction of, for lack of a better word, God for creation. And so they're actually anti-nature, anti-creation, anti-God, anti-Christ, these people. And they have everybody following them thinking that they're, so that really just reinforced what I've been writing and what I've been reading. So that's my check-in.
Thanks. Thank you so much, everyone.
I mean, that's my
no worries. Thank you so much. I wanted to start by reading the opening of the chapter. So I'll do that. Having lost both Upper and Lower Egypt, Ethiopia's northern border had been pushed to the first cataract at Aswan, and Necho II eventually became king of Egypt, beginning the 26th dynasty from 665 BC to 525 BC. The Egyptian armies were increasingly made up of foreigners and enslaved blacks. It was during this dynasty that the Assyrians were expelled again, this time by nationalistic Egyptians. The blacks lost of their beloved Memphis, Thebes, and even their Egyptian name now seemed to be final. Other invasions came. The Persians under Darius the Greek took over, and their domination of Egypt lasted from 525 to 404 BC, with the assistance of Greek mercenaries. They returned in 345 BC to reestablish their rule, but again, only for a relatively short duration. Alexander reached Egypt in 332 BC on his world-conquering rampage. But one of the greatest generals in the ancient world was also the Empress of Ethiopia. This was the formidable Black Queen Candace, world famous as a military tactician and field commander. Legend has it that Alexander could not entertain even the possibility of having his world fame and unbroken chain of victories marred by risking a defeat at last by a woman. He halted his armies at the borders of Ethiopia and did not invade to meet the waiting Black armies with their queen in personal command. I wanted to read that because I felt that it gives a lot of information on ancient Black civilization. So we see the battles that we are engaging in, and we see that we are attempting to defend our land to some extent. We have been defeated for the most part by people who were invading Egypt, the Assyrians, and once we dealt with them, Persians came, but the Greeks came. It was just too much. It was an overwhelming attack, pretty much like what's happening now in modern times. But it also shows that even in the wake of this defeat, we still had Black giants. And I believe Queen Candace is what I would consider a Black giant. Not even, Alexander, quote unquote, the Great, was like, strong enough or brave enough to challenge her army. Even he thought to himself, you know what, I'm going to just sit back and not interact with this Black queen and her army. So it shows that Black people do have power, and we do have the goal to defend ourselves, and we can cause a lot of fear. We do cause fear, and I'm not talking about the fear that's been programmed into people, the he's gonna rob you fear, the thug with a gun fear. I'm talking about not to be messed with fear, like do not hurt this person because this person is well equipped to defend themselves, and these people are to be protected and respected. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. But I just wanted to read that just to give a glimpse. And there's a picture of her with her armies, and they're riding elephants. Disappearing in the screen, but very powerful image. I would love to know your thoughts. Anyone want to share anything from this part? Anyone want to respond? Thanks, Ben, for letting the great folks see the.
Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely. It's such a beautiful image. It's so powerful, and you see unity. You literally see two elephants, not even just one. So that is that you get that matriarchal and patriarchal energy coming forward. And for me, it's just yes, is that it's powerful and it's revolutionary, and but the statement is very written clearly there, like the what is it, right? Against the invasion of the ancient center of the Black Power, halted his army at the first cataract. So this is the first cataract in 332 BC. I believe it's 590 BC. They're at the fourth cataract, is it? So like, how many times have they had to do this? Like, it's a powerful story in the first instance, but when you have to do it every 30 to 40 years, you're losing your warriors, you're losing your scholars, you're losing the community build. So like, yeah, it's an amazing victory, and it's a showcase of our resilience, but it's really a showcase also of what happens when other races are united in invading us. And that's what needs to be like look at that's what's happening now. That's an echo of what's happening now, having to get that Asian getting into the Asian census that Black people are not good for you. So, but then again, we've been ignoring the white crimes that have been happening for the longest period of time. And we need to address that attitude as soon as possible in social policies, in the media. Not even in the media, we need to ignore the media and go straight to facts. Like just as much as the media is producing their own propaganda, we need to produce our own propaganda of the truth, and just have this information circulating at just as much a rate as they are having theirs. Like images like this, information like these, just little chapters like this that show the what happens when previously with white allegiance, a loss of culture and loss of civilization, and it being given back to you in a way that it only capitalizes and drains you. Yeah. That's my thoughts on Alexandra's progressing into but it's amazing to know that Queen Candace existed and did what she needed to do for her generation.
Well said. And I wanted to.
1 second, can I comment?
Of course, please do.
I wanted to just say, yeah, it's very powerful imagery with Queen Candace and her army of elephant riders defending their land from white supremacists, to the point where Alexander the Great halted his advance. So I just think, what if Black children were being taught this in schools? Perhaps we would have a lot more Black self-respect on planet Earth if they knew what was in their blood. And I want to read also from this page, starting at the bottom, 118, where Chancellor Williams says, towards the end of Greek domination, the expansion of the Roman Empire had transferred the real center of power to Rome. Assyria, Persia, Greece, Rome, the continuing process of transforming a Black civilization into a near-white civilization long before the Christian era. So this is one of their tactics. They go in and they freaking use sex to create a bunch of mulatto races, and they slowly but surely erase Black, like literal the whitewashing, the white trashing of a peoples, of a groups, is how we are beginning to learn how they operate. So way before Christianity came, they had this in their tool set. We have to make this place not Black. So this is why I really believe that if one person is going to have a offspring, make sure you understand racism and make sure you're procreating with someone darker than you, because we have really gotten light over the years, and that just does nothing but to help to maintain a system of white supremacy. So it's just really sick how a group of people can even think in such a way to behave like this, to behave in a fashion where we're going and raping raping women, killing the men, so they're gonna have lighter children for generations. It's just really war. You know, this is war, and that's all.
Yeah, I wanted to comment as well. I I wanted to, because he makes mention of these weak leaders, this line of weak leaders, and then we have a great leader such as Queen Candace. So what exactly makes these leaders weak? I believe it's their desire to, what they would say, unite the two lands, but really is to integrate with their enemies. And as we can clearly see, Queen Candace has no desire to do that. The only thing she wants to do is see her people prosper. And she knows by that, I suspect she realizes that through integration and amalgamation that cannot be possible for her people. So she stands her ground. She defends her people against the invading white supremacists. And the white supremacists know they can, I don't know if they can feel it, but they know very well that given history and the evidence that the Black people, these African people, will die for their freedom, will die to preserve their people, to preserve their culture, etc. So Queen Candace, a very unique, I wouldn't say unique, but a very great leader. And I also wanted to comment on the kind of the author's writing style. Kind of jumps around a lot with these dates. So if you don't pay attention, you could get lost. Like he's jumping from BC to AD, like, and if you don't pay attention, you don't know what time frame you're in. Just wanted to comment on that.
Awesome. Yeah, Swan, you actually had about 0256. Actually, you had touched on what I was going to read. So what whites also do is they use Black people and Black resources to expand their territory, expand their wealth. So what the Greeks did and the Romans did, they were able to go into Africa, exploit the people, exploit the land, and then they were able to expand their own nation. So it says, they expanded Rome, Assyria, Persia, Greece, and those countries are still, alive today, and they're not starving. They're not in the same condition as Africa is, where like there's no unification, there's no centralized economic structure to ensure that all the people within the continent are happy, healthy, and fed. That's not an effort that's being worked towards, besides vampire organizations such as UNICEF. So thanks for reading that part, continuing that part. But white people are very skilled at using Black people's energies to, expand their wealth, expand their empire, their white supremacist empire. That was a really great example of that. And
I just noticed, can I interject right quick right here? Just a couple of things. On 120, further midway down, there were times when a native Afro-Asian ruler gained the center of stage as the star attraction, as in the case of Cleopatra. Upon her death in 30 BC, Romans assumed direct control, ruling the country for 7 centuries, beginning their reign 30 years before Jesus Christ would be born, in the same Palestine where Blacks had lived and ruled for so long. That was something that I had not thought about or even realized, that's the reason Palestine is so viciously and brutally under attack today, is because of its history, of its origin, and the threat that they have for white supremacy and white rule there in Israel. And then in the following paragraph, it talked about how this Arab general Amr ibn al entered Alexandria in 642 with only 4,000 men. The conquest of Egypt by the Muslim armies, which reached Pelusium 2 years earlier was not only to change the character of Egyptian civilization radically, but it was to have a disastrous impact on the dignity and destiny of Africans as a people. And it gets right back to being able to, he took 4,000 men and was able to dominate with that. And what that tells me is that they were highly organized, highly dedicated, and highly committed to sticking together and working together and strategizing. And they must have had a hell of a military strategy to be able to do that with 4,000 men. And it made me think about the 300,000 Union soldiers after the Civil War that fought for the Yankees. Yes, it was to abolish slavery, and that's controversial. That obviously wasn't the real reason. But my thought was, when I was reading that, what if those 300,000 soldiers would have stayed together and like maybe took Louisiana and called all the Black people together in Louisiana and Mississippi and created like a military barrier and military strategy. So that's what our movie's going to be about, Trey.
I agree that we'd love to make constructive films that help our people in this war, this literal war. So yeah, I guess we should move into the next segment. Now we're going to start by reading the intro, The New Borderline of the Blacks. And I want to read this because it shows you what the African continent has gone through, and also what the African people of the continent have gone through thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, even 20 plus years ago, with, South Africa's apartheid, which is still happening. It's just been refined. Black people are still suffering, and the majority over there, there's white people suffering. Yeah, but not at the scale of Black people, and that's never ever going to happen until justice is, created. And I'm not saying white people suffering is justice. I'm just saying that no one is going to be suffering as much as Black people until white supremacy is replaced with a system of justice, where everyone who needs the most help, gets the most help. So on page 120, it reads, "We have traced the ancient struggles between Africans, mulattoes, and Asians, where the Africans sought not only to resist conquest, but to retake the whole of Egypt. They succeeded at times, but finally lost all of Egypt, as we have seen. Ethiopia now began at the first cataract in the north and extended south into present-day Ethiopia. It was now bounded by Upper Egypt, the Red Sea, and the Libyan Desert. These are rather general geographical designations without any precise meaning, for ancient Ethiopia had no precise southern boundaries. Ancient Ethiopians would say that their land included Egypt and was, in fact, boundaries in Africa insofar as non-Africans were concerned. All of the European and Asian doctrines about unoccupied regions of Africa at any given period in history are quite meaningless and unacceptable to Africans. For to them, it is just as senseless as it would be to say to a farmer anywhere, see here now, there are large sections of your land unoccupied and unattended, so we'll just come in and take it." So I wanted to read this because there's a lot of confusion in the world as to what is Africa. I remember as a child thinking Africa was a place somewhere in the world, didn't know if it was south or west. I just knew that it was in the world somewhere. And I always thought, Afghanistan, Middle East, Palestine, I always thought that was part of Africa as well because it's attached to it somehow. And then people who used to live there used to be Black until they were I guess, removed by force. So in today's climate, we have the Middle East, which is literally North Africa, but it's called the Middle East, and it inhabits all these Arab countries and these Arab people. And then you have places like South Africa, which is Africa divided in half to some extent, or divided in some quarters and given to white people and saying, here, this place is now South Africa. It doesn't matter if it's geographically in the South, they're calling it South Africa and white people are claiming it as theirs. So that has happened, it's happening right now. It's also happened historically. It happened when Black people were fighting for their land and fighting for Egypt and defending Ethiopia and having to, fight hordes of armies of invaders and fight spies. So nothing really changed, it's just the clothes we wear and the ways in which we fight have definitely evolved or devolved. It was a lot more simpler back then because we knew, a guy with a sword and a gun's coming to kill you, so defend yourself. Getting off the boat, they come with chains, you know that you're being hunted, you know you're being killed. Now it's like people are twerking while they're being sniped. Very weird system of white supremacy. But anyone would respond.
Yeah, I didn't have notes from this portion. But I will. We could definitely share from Children of the Sun. But I don't want to.
Sorry, before you go into Children of the Sun, was the new Borderline where they talked about gold mining? Yep, rich in gold, and it was even within the context. Yep, sorry, I just want to read from page 121. The geography, is this okay, right?
It would be better if the music was not in the background.
Oh, sorry. The geography of Nubia is the geography of much of present-day Sudan and beyond. The Nile flows through its sand and rock deserts with a series of falls in the number of rapids. The country is almost rainless. It is the land of the Great Nubian Desert, while west of the Nile towards the Red Sea was the mining area rich in gold. It was even within the concept of these geographical boundaries, the heartland of the Black world. I found this information really rich because, of course, we know all of Africa is enriched with all these different type of minerals. But I think to myself, Nubia or Sudan would have been somewhere where white people would have settled, like South Africa, if it wasn't for the fact that it was a place that was mainly sunlit. I think that is the only thing that's kept the geography of Europeans being able to sustain rulership in Egypt. I think that probably has something to do with the complete fall of the civilization because shortly after, because this chapter also mentions, is it Cleopatra? Shortly after she passed away, they said that how the Europeans took over Egypt completely. She was like the last bloodline, which lets you know that even probably during her rulership, the kind of laws that were being passed, amongst the council, were probably not in the better interest of the people. So their mentality probably was not even in the shape or form to be ready to take over when she does pass away, if that makes sense. So I'm trailing off and going around from my thoughts from reading this, but what I literally just thought to myself, I think it's literally geography is the only reason why Europeans haven't settled there and remained, keeping some form of their own empire going on in ancient Egypt. And the majority whole of Africa, and it's being bombarded in these different ways. And we look at South Sudan today because a lot of this information talks about how Meru is actually located in South Sudan. I had a look online of Sudan's of the way Meru looks now, and it looks beautiful. It has the history is definitely there, but it's deserted. It's unrestored, unkept in a sense. Like the sands are like kind of washed over. It was almost like a forgotten history. And all the images that I see, there's no actual Black people in these images, like who have actually visited it. So it's somewhere I'd love to visit. But I hear a lot that South Sudan is somewhere that's highly targeted right now in terms of wars and, of course, civil conflict and blocking of barriers, so they're not able to like export, import, trade for their money. So trade. So yeah, I just think these kind of chapters are important in understanding, piecing that together, that geography. And maybe if we all just go somewhere where it's going to be too hot for the Europeans, or they'll probably nuke it if we'll stay in one spot. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say to respond, there's no safe place on a planet with the system of white supremacy. There's no running that can be done. We must replace the system with a system of justice, or be forever under the threat of destruction from those who practice white supremacy. So
exactly. And sorry, I also wanted to add, which is why I think that Arabians have been able to dominate those spaces and live there, especially with having some of their ancestors in their bloodline, and just being able to be a part of the children of the sun, because it's still in their bloodline. No matter how small it is, you're able to, as long as you can yield melanin, you can tan, you can reach whatever shade you want to, depending on your exposure to the sunlight. So the point is that they were able to maintain and stay there, and the way that it's being controlled now is through French or speaking English, or that being predominantly the languages that are accepted, respected, and seen as a sign of civilization in those countries, to further push away the actual like historical culture and native tongues that are there.
Yeah, with the creation of these new borderlines, I think it really highlights how surrounded the Africans were in that particular area. And also he mentions in this section before how the Romans, after, I don't know if it was after Cleopatra died, but how they had moved the center of power to Rome. So really now they are just able to completely exploit all of the people and the civilizations in Egypt and the surrounding areas, because their people, I assume, aren't living there. I mean, maybe a few of them, but maybe diplomats, but very few number. Whereas so they can go around destroying everything that they please, because their center of control is in Europe. It's no longer in Egypt. I think that's an important piece to add to that.
Ms. Noble, you said something that really stuck out. You said that we would move somewhere warmer and then they probably nuke us. So white people have nuked people before. They've nuked the Japanese people during Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and also in the book I discussed earlier, the Turner Diaries. There are several nuclear launches that they use to disrupt society and kill as many non-white people as possible. So nuclear warfare will definitely, be a part of the agenda if white people, feel pushed to the edge, because all it took was Pearl Harbor. Well, no, wait, was it Pearl Harbor that initiated? Yeah, I do believe so. All it took was Pearl Harbor for them to nuke 2 Japanese cities, and they wanted to.
That was self-orchestrated.
Yeah, and they wanted to quote unquote end the war, by killing 70,000 Asians, and then affecting hundreds of thousands more with radiation poisoning. To this day, they're still suffering from that. Same thing could be said from the Agent Orange effects in Vietnam. So, which to me is like a chemical warfare, very similar, But I guess we can move on to the children of the sun. And I do believe 0526 wanted to share something. So that's
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. There's a ton here, but I think freaking like just deep levels of Black respect can be found in these passages right here. And I'm gonna read these two paragraphs from 122. It says, "But it is clear that having reconquered the Asian-dominated Lower Egypt, the Black Pharaoh sought integration with the Asian instead of driving them out of the country. This policy of moderation and accommodation was apparently anathema to the extremist Ethiopians, proud Blacks whom the prospect of having their children come into the world with a color distinctly different from their own was at once an insult to their watching ancestors and an offense to the gods themselves." So there's once during a time where, like, if he thought about bringing in a offspring that was not Black, not dark, that was negative. That was a problem for in their culture. But here we have in 2021, I want a child with straight hair and light skin is something we've all have heard in some way, shape, or form. And I think it's very tragic at how we have just lost our love, our respect for our Blackness. And I also think it's really important not to repeat history, which we are definitely doing right now in 2021. Also, this passage from 125, it says the Blacks had apparently been more concerned with the development of their copper industry than with iron. Iron ore was in abundance. The earlier failure to exploit it, especially for military weapons, was the reason Assyrians, with their superior iron weapons, were able to sweep the Blacks out of Egypt, invading the heartland and destroying the holy city of Napata. The Africans had long since learned the use of iron. They knew all about the smelting process. Why did they allow the Assyrians to get ahead of them? Granting that the ancients kept their military development secret as the nations tried to do, it was also true that spies, including Africans, were active everywhere. So again, Black people have had access to their resources when they were in total control of their resources. It doesn't seem like they were using it as constructively as they could. And then in 2021, Black people don't have control over much of their resources. And so it's just really, we're definitely repeating history because we have yet to learn from it and learn what to do. But the biggest takeaway is, for me, is the children of the sun, and that wanting to be Black, that wanting to exude Black sun excellence. It seems the only people who want to be Black in 2021 are people who are white, and they think being Black is wearing fancy jewelry, or wearing a do-rag, and listening to Black noise that people call music. So it is a really retarded society that we live in, made this way by a racist man, a racist woman, and a racist child. And unless in ineffective numbers, non-whites really get serious about understanding this problem and attempting to solve the problem every single day, we will definitely be destroyed indefinitely, forever, be subjugated, be made retarded monsters who just want to dance, clown around, and look cute for other people with like no ounce of knowledge, respect in our bones, mind, psyche, or souls. That's all I have.
Deep, man. It's deep. I wanted to actually ask a question based off something that you had said, but you went off into like a strong tangent. Good one, very necessary one. I think it was to do with, so you made the statement of we wasn't making use of our resources, like the iron ore, the way that we should have been. remember that this was for like weaponry making, and I'm not saying that we wasn't making weapons, but on the scale that okay, rather than taking it on that focus, this is what cataract is this, or what number of invasions, or how many invasions or centuries of invasions have they actually incurred in this time? I feel like there's some parts of the trade or the types of trade that they would do that would have reduced from the start of the peak of the civilization, being in charge of almost all forms of trade, having an abundant resource of oil and having control of all parts of their land. I think even having that block of how much they can trade based on who is now controlling the parts of the borders will affect business over time, and then it will eventually iron ore shops will close down. So I don't even know if it was the media understanding of the media lack of using of their materials. I think it was like almost a reduction of, and then just focusing on certain amounts and focusing on certain trades, like described, like the pottery that's described. And also these things in this time as well, it being half Asian dominated or building up towards Asian domination, if you think about it on a social political scale, it's almost a threat to have so many different trades. I feel like they'll even come in more. So I feel like at this time, as well as rebuilding and constructing, that it was almost like a main whole focus on the criticals. I may be wrong, but this is just my theory on trying to understand where they were along the century BC line around the
I think it makes a lot of sense. I feel like a lot of the time was spent like we just said, doing non-military stuff, and it would make more sense if this is like their X amount of time being invaded. We keep getting invaded by these people who are not Black, so we need to like only focus on defense, So we don't need to be making any pots. We don't need to be making anything that's not gonna keep us from these Asian white hordes. So I think the temple building and all that stuff was, yes, very can be constructive, but not when you have a group of people who have shown you through about a 500-year time span that this is what they're gonna keep doing, attacking and invading you.
Right. I want to respond to the section in general, Children of the Sun. I do think there's a correlation between self-respect and skin color, and lack of respect and skin color. And I think if Black children were taught that you are a child of the sun, that just skin pigmentation that you have protects you, and not only protects you, it guides you. Melanin is also in your brain. It's also in your eyes. It's all over your body. And this is a organism, a biochemical, however you want to call it, that adds a certain level of some type of evolutional advantage to people who have it. And I think people talk about skin color as in light or dark versus what it means to be light and what it means to be dark. Someone who's light just doesn't have the same amount of melanin. They don't have the same amount of skin pigmentation. So people are very uneducated on what skin color means and what it comes with. I've already known from a very young age, because me and my twin brother have the same skin color, but our younger brother have he has a different shade of skin color than us. And even as a child, I always knew that because he was darker, he definitely was. I always thought he was faster and stronger and better than us, because he had the melanin. He had what Tupac said: "The blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice." He had that essence. And I consider myself having freckles and being more. I just always consider my blood to be I used to call it corrupted. I didn't know about white supremacy when I was a kid, but I do know that having white blood inside me definitely affected my mental well-being and my just my overall functions in life. And this is a child thinking these things. No one's telling me about race. No one's talking to me about race in my household. I'm just, in my mind, understanding that something is very, very wrong with the world, and my skin color has something to do with it, Our skin color is a driving force. And that's what goes on in the head of children when they're under constant attack and they don't know why. No one's talking about race, so you internalize everything, so you grow up hating yourself for the most part. You're indoctrinated to self-hate because, you're just trained subconsciously that black is bad. The darker, the worse, So this segment, Children of the Sun, it talks about how our ancestors were proud, of their skin color. It was a shame to whitewash your descendants. It was frowned upon to kind of try to demelanate decolorize yourself basically by finding someone lighter and hoping that the baby will come out light. So I wish we could move towards that again. I wish we could find respect for our skin color, because I feel like we have had so many people who have been racially showcased that have cast spells on Black people. One of the prime examples is the Michael Jackson, like how an entire planet watched this Black male go from being a Black male to be white, and it's not the focal point of every single news magazine. White supremacy forces artists to become white. That should have been on every single magazine article back when Michael Jackson was doing whatever he was forced to do by the system. And that definitely cast a spell on us. It definitely showed us that Black is not acceptable. No matter how big you are, how famous you are, how rich you are, you cannot be Black. You cannot be at this level and be Black. So Michael Jackson is, he's not what he is. Anyone want to respond, say whatever they want to say?
I think that's a very, very great explanation, because it got me thinking back to my childhood as well, and how I definitely had that mental imagery and understanding that, I'm bad. I'm ugly. Like I didn't think I was ugly. I understood that I was being told I was ugly. I understood that I was like the person you say to, like I don't know how to describe it, but it put me in a mindset where I quickly, maybe it's because of the way I dealt with my parenting, but I quickly had to tell myself, I don't care about this. And this is what I care about. I like this. This makes me laugh. I like cartoons. I like this. I like getting my mind into the things I like and being like an action, like tomboy. I think that's also an onset reason as to why I wasn't a girly child, because I associated that with being pretty. And then if I had been feminine, I would have risked being shamed and being said, you're not a girl, or you're not girly. It's that kind of mentality or statement, especially when you're in a Black household where they also have their own programming. Like a statement my auntie used to say was, the older you get, the blacker you get. And like that, there was a point in our childhood where, I don't know if it's a part of puberty, but we got really dark skin. And I noticed it to the point that people around me were bleaching. My mother had bleaching cream. I wanted to bleach. I didn't do it. I remember putting the cream on and then thinking, this is not good for my skin. When I traveled to Sierra Leone when I was 12, I got faced with so many of my aunties who did bleach. I could physically see the effects on their skin, like having the burnt hands and then their skin lightening up in their face, and telling me my complexion is so beautiful and I should never bleach. And I remember looking at them as a child and thinking, but I can see that that's exactly what you're doing. But then I understood that it was almost a regret that they had even started. And that kind of helped me fix in that mindset of, I don't care, this is just how other people act and operate sort of mentality. So I had to strengthen myself in that way. But imagine if I had the information that this book has been providing about it's almost religious to respect yourself. And it's almost like we've been defying our faith in who we are as being children of the sun by shaming ourselves for having a dark complexion and literally going through these emotional turns as a child. It's almost sinful to my bloodstream that I spent a lot of time pumping up that cortisol, that negative energy of feeling of who I am because of what was being projected or taught to me. Yeah. And this, the moment that I learned to actually really love myself, it was a magical feeling in my body. And I think we've all gone through that moment where you like look at yourself and you really appreciate yourself, and that chemical that's being released, that's what we should have been releasing as a children from early. And imagine what could have been of our genetic makeup if we wasn't pumping that constantly for long. But yeah, we're reversing it now. But yeah, thank you for that explanation, because it got me thinking about that.
You guys kind of got me kind of a little emotional with this vulnerability, you know. That was very, both of you, that very vulnerable to share that, you know. I appreciate that. I think it gets to all the way to the depths of at the beginning of the book, he talked about how they had to stomp out, they had to eliminate the African religion in order to take control of the people. And they realized that the blacker you are, the more jet black you are, the closer you are to God. In all societies prior to the 4 major religions worship the sun, you know, and obviously the darker you are, the closer you are to the sun, for obvious reasons, the more sun you can take. You can even look at some of those ancient Egyptian colossal sculptures where it actually shows you how they meditate. They sit with you know, they sit facing the sun, in the sun, and that's how they pray, in the sun, facing the sun. They pray to meditate it, and it just shows you the position. Like when they're sitting there with their hands on their laps, they're meditating. You can see their eyes closed. I'll try to find the image and share it with you. You can see that they're worshiping the sun. And to find out, it has to be a soul-destroying experience to find out that which is God, that which gives everything life, it kills you. The extreme sense of inadequacy and feelings of insecurity, to know that God, that you're anti-nature, you're anti-God, the sun actually, that gives everything on the planet life, you can't partake in it. I really think that's at the core of their real sense of insecurity and inadequacy. I wanted to read something. From ancient, this is on page 126. I think someone read it already, but from ancient days, therefore, the Africans had in the very heartland on the continent a history from which their posterity could learn how unity alone provided the condition for strength and progress, and that each one of 1,000 little independent chiefdoms were but a standing invitation to the aggressors and the ultimate domination of all. Why did the Africans fail to take this message of salvation as a revealed truth from their own history? What dimmed the civilization's light on Barkal Hill and caused an ultimate withdrawal to the bush and the scattering of people hither and yon like hunted beasts? Why did Africans begin to retire from the race with other advancing peoples and fall so far behind that even the memory of former greatness could not inspire a revival, because that memory had been almost completely blotted out? So, and he goes on to even detailing throughout the later chapters, we shall explore further answers to this question. So I'm sure we're going to get into that. But I just thought it really powerful that all the way from all of this time, this long time ago, so long ago, that our self-esteem had been attacked, and we've never been able to retrieve it with all of this information. And I agree with Swat. We need to darken our nation, not lighten it.
Yeah. Children of the Sun, thank you for that. Children of the Sun, this was a very powerful section indeed. I too have also, if I had known this as, at a younger age, as a child, could have definitely made me feel better about myself and my skin complexion. I liked in this section, this part where it said, this was color racism, deeply rooted, for it sprang from religion. They were children of the sun, blessed with blackness by the sun god himself, and thus protected, I'm on top of 123, from his fiery rays. They were his children. Their very blackness, therefore, was religious, a blessing and an honor. I've never, ever heard anything like that before, or even that kind of thought, process, those ideas. As a kid, me personally, I definitely did not enjoy my complexion. I definitely did not like the way I looked. I pretty much hated everything about the way I looked. Even at points there's a point in time where I went through a phase where I, turned my hair. My mom did it, and she allowed it to happen. I'm not blaming her because I wanted it, but I flattened my hair, kind of to make it, spiky, like the little white boys. I went around referring to myself as Dustin, from Power Rangers. I don't know any black people named Dustin. I only applied to white people. So, stuff like this, if I had known this as a child, I mean, I've definitely grown out of it, but I think kids need to hear things like this, especially black kids, dark kids need to hear things like this, that their skin, that their blackness was therefore a blessing and an honor. Also, I found the statement early on page 122 where he says the policy of moderation and accommodation was apparently anathema to the extremist Ethiopians, proud blacks for whom the prospects of having their children come into the world with a color distinctly different from their own was at once an insult to their watching ancestors and an offense to gods themselves. The whole idea that I have of Black people as a group and as a culture is one of constant integration, that we are always needing to seek out these other groups and identify with them, that we always have to share a common goal and a common purpose. But hearing this, it just kind of reinforces why things like that can be dangerous for Black people, especially Africans, and really how our ancestors felt. Because if we aren't, we're not under a system of racism, white supremacy, we're not going to be exposed to these kind of ideas and these teachings. Because once we are exposed to this, our thoughts will change and we'll start to move differently. But we still are kind of following, I guess, the ideas of those lower Egyptian pharaohs. Even today, when people are talking about Egypt, to me now, there's definitely two distinctive Egypts. There's not just one Egypt. So which Egypt are we talking about? The integration Egypt, the amalgamation Egypt, or the Black Sudanese Upper Egypt? I think that's something that we should also try to, differentiate from, because it's very clear that Egypt, the word Egyptian means a host of things, and people are still kind of using that phrase today. Can be kind of confusing now given this information. But Children of the Sun, definitely a powerful section. And then where they talk about the threats that that these children posed, where the first was obviously their skin and their attitude about their skins, and then the second being the economics that they practiced. The Egypt relying heavily on the South and these Black people for their imports. And then the third, which I thought was, I don't really know if this would ever happen. It could, it might. I don't think it ever did happen, but this is something that I believe, white supremacy practices. But, the third great fear concerned the mighty Nile River. Suppose the Ethiopians decide to bring Egypt to her knees and starve her to death by diverting the waters of the Nile. Belief in this possibility was ancient and ran deep. I wonder if they ever had the capabilities of doing that, or the desire to do something like that. I mean, I wouldn't say it's anything that they shouldn't do to protect themselves and protect their people, but.
So thanks everyone for sharing. If you have anything else you want to share, now's the time. If not, we're going to be moving into closing comments. All right, awesome. So down to move into closing comments. I feel like a lot has been said that encompasses what we discussed. There's a lot of work to do to get some type of Black community established that's, not demonic. When I say demonic, I just mean lower dimensional. Like, dancing can be celebrated when we are not being killed by race soldiers. Fun can be had when our children, which means the future of Black people, are not being killed by race soldiers. And I'm using to continue learning. These segments were really overwhelming because it's just defeat after defeat after defeat. But there's some tidbits in there that are inspiring. So yeah, those are my closing comments.
I think it was just really powerful. Comparison between what happened to us then, when it talked about that last part I read about why did Africans begin to retire from the race with other advancing people and so far behind. But before that, it said, what dimmed the civilization's light on Baraka Hill and caused an ultimate withdrawal to the bush and the scattering of people hither and yon like hunted beasts. And aren't we like hunted beasts today in the streets of the cities? Aren't we like hunted beasts in the hoods? And aren't we hunting each other and killing each other? And it occurred to me that the same thing that's happening now, what is it that kept the people divided in chiefdoms and reverting into the bush? What causes us to stay divided in neighborhoods instead of communities and retreat into the ghettos? It's drugs, it's alcohol, it's all kinds of tactics and things that are pleasures, sex, you know, just the physical, earthly pleasures, you know, and it's like there's a handful of intellectual people like us that are trying to say, no, don't run into the forest. No, come back. Let's get together. Let's be intelligent. Let's fight this battle. Let's unite. But you got the vast majority that is saying, fuck that. We just want to eat, drink, and be merry. And I don't think it's a lot different than what happened then. They just got overwhelmed and complacent and divided. And like I said, the same thing that is happening now happened then. And it's continued to happen up until this day. And until we unite, and it said right here, until we get together, it is the you know, we knew that posterity could learn how unity alone provided the condition for strength and progress. Yeah, so we got a long ways to go in getting together, because the vast majority still they're going to be smoking weed and snorting cocaine and well, I don't want to group those two together, but necessarily, but you know what I'm trying to say. Partying, just the strip clubs, the Gucci, the you know, the materialism and the spirituality. At the end of the day, you know, that's how they were able to. That's who. Whenever someone wins, that's how they're able to win, by disregarding spirituality and morality and just using guns and money, and making that, you know, guns and money and status. That's why these kids are killing each other in the streets, because they don't have money. So the way to get status is to have a gun and kill somebody. And until we put morality and spirituality first and unite on that, we will be stuck in this perpetual place at the bottom of the socioeconomic scale.
Well said.
I completely agree.
Well said, Mr. Piano.
Thank you. Yeah, I completely agree with the statements made so far, 100%. For my closing comments, I'd say that this chapter, these chapters that we read so far, is short amount of pages, but so much information and so much resistance, so much resilience, so much fight, so much. One thing that was consistent, although it hasn't been consistent for, it hasn't been this building up the way at the level that it should be. For how many years we're almost dormant, in a sense, as we're waking up in consciousness. More so, I pray that we're able to move as a unit and use this information to bring forward more solutions, bring about more people to read this information and have this understanding. I'm really grateful for what everybody shared here today. What Ben said is true. We've been very vulnerable with this chapter because of the topics brought up about that. Just that terminology, religion. It should be our religion. That is your religion, to love yourself. That is, and it's been taught in an individualistic way. Like Western society always likes to give us things back in a very confused version of what we gave to them. And the religion of loving yourself, it doesn't have to be individualistic. You can love yourself with the creator in mind, and understanding that we are all one, and 360 degrees of what the creator's vision is. That's my understanding of 360 degrees perspective. Each and every single one of us has a perspective that comes together to make God's one vision, if that makes sense. So for me, that we need to adopt that as our religion, that loving ourselves, and even the terminology, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the roots. It's more like, or the juice or whatever. It's more like understanding that the blacker the berry, the I want to say I can't even use the terminology deeper connection, just the quicker the information or access to the creator. I would say that. So in encouraging ourselves to eat more melatonin foods so we can and encourage our DNA to take the melanin in the best ways. There's I keep going off in tangents, but it's really important to understand that like these imageries that we see on TV of like how they remember, they understand us, they know us. We was so deep in like different shades and melanin that we was probably given off different rays of like blue and green. And it's actually there's a theory that goes out there that says that you can even see it in your skin. But there's a theory that goes out that says that you can even shine like blue or green. And this is the kind of imagery that we see in cartoons. So it's not to say that it has to be achieved in our mentality, but it's just to understand that we have the DNA complexity for this, and we should respect and reverence that, rather than the opposite version of like celebrities go through that trauma. Patricia made a very important point that why wasn't it being said that the industry is making Michael Jackson white? Instead, we're putting it on him that he wants to be a woman, or he wants to be a Europeanized, or the money's turning it this way. We always find a way to counterbalance the blame. But the morality that was being spoken about by Ben, that I really think is important to adopt and understand, that we do need to take on that morality, but we need to get on the same page of what morality looks like to us, and understanding that we need to remove ourselves from the morality that Western society has taught us, that ignorance is bliss. No, ignorance is evil. So that's a complete flip in our morality that needs to be clarified and understood. We need to get on the same code of morality so that we can trust and operate that we're in the same religion. Yeah. And yeah, I can't wait for us to read more. This book is so enlightening, and it allows us to dive into these kind of parts of our body and heal. Because I definitely felt some form of healing and having a conversation about how we each felt as children. It's not the first time I've had it, but each time something new comes up, and I can appreciate myself and our people a bit more. And giving back to the children, this information needs to be given to them so they don't have to go through that insecure or inadequate turmoil, and they can have that strong faith from the beginning in their set religion of loving themselves.
Thank you, everyone. Very well said. For my closing comments, these chapters have been very insightful. Definitely learning a lot. The authors definitely set the platform for where we were as a people. Sorry. The authors definitely set the platform for where we were as a people, set it up to let us know this is where we were as a people. These great ancient people built ancient great civilizations, never faltered, went back always for what was rightfully ours, and to where we are today. So I think I'm looking forward to the rest of the readings with you guys, and thank you for the conversation.
Well, I guess that's everyone, huh? Thanks everyone. Man.